I'm sharing this story because I know I'm not alone. If you've ever felt used by someone you love, if you've ever questioned whether you're being too generous or not generous enough, if you've ever had to choose between family and self-respect, this story is for you. Please stay with me until the end, and let me know in the comments what city you're listening from. I want to see how far this story travels. My name is Olivia Morrison. I'm 69 years old, and this is the story of how I almost lost everything to my own son. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and butter. I was making my famous apple pie, the one with the lattice crust that took me 45 minutes to weave properly. Every month since Christopher was born, we'd had Sunday dinner together. 35 years of tradition. Even after my husband Robert died 5 years ago, Christopher and I kept it going. It was our thing, our sacred time. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped flour from my hands and picked it up. Christopher. But it wasn't a call. It was a text. Mom, about Sunday's dinner. Amber's not feeling up to it. Maybe skip this month. I stared at the screen, reading the words again. Christopher always called. Always. In 35 years, he'd never texted to cancel dinner. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Is she okay? Do you need anything? I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally, she needs space from family obligations right now. We'll call you next week. Space from family obligations. I read it 5 times. Each time the words felt colder. The whisk slipped from my hand and clattered into the metal bowl. Apple slices sat on the counter, carefully peeled and sugared, waiting to be arranged in the pie dish. I'd bought the apples at the farmer's market on Saturday, choosing each one carefully. Honeycrisp, Christopher's favorite. I looked at the text again. Family obligations. When had I become an obligation? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the king-sized bed that had felt too large for 5 years since Robert's heart attack took him from me at 67. The ceiling fan turned slowly above me, and I stared at shadows while my mind raced. Family obligations. I kept hearing it in Amber's voice, even though Christopher had written it. Because it was her, wasn't it? She was behind this. She had to be. But was I being unfair? Was I being one of those mothers-in-law, the ones who can't let go, who see their daughters-in-law as competition? I tried to remember the last time Christopher had called just to talk, not to ask for something, just to check in to see how I was doing. I couldn't. Instead, I remembered money. Always money. March. Mom, I've got this incredible business opportunity. A commercial property deal that could change everything. I just need $8,000 to get in on the ground floor. Can you help? I'd transferred it that same day. What kind of mother says no when her son's business is taking off May? Mom, Amber's car broke down. The transmission is shot. We need $12,000 for repairs and a temporary lease until the insurance settles. $12,000. I'd hesitated for maybe 10 seconds before logging into my bank account. They needed a car. How could I say no July? Mom, Amber's starting a jewelry business. She has such an eye for design, you should see her pieces. She just needs startup capital. $25,000 would cover inventory and the first 6 months of rent. $25,000. It was most of my summer budget. But Christopher's voice had been so full of hope, so excited. This could set us up for life, Mom. We could finally get ahead. I'd sent it. September. Mom, the market's been slow. Real estate's tough right now. We're struggling with the mortgage. Just $15,000 to give us 3 months of breathing room. $15,000. For my son's house. For the roof over his head. Of course I sent it. But lying there in the dark, adding it up for the first time, the number made me feel sick. 8 plus 12 plus 25 plus 15. $60,000. And that wasn't counting the smaller things. The country club membership I'd been paying for, it's for networking Mom, essential for business. That was $3,600 a year. The emergency root canal, $2,800. The desperately needed weekend in Napa to save their marriage, $4,200. The monthly expense help I'd been sending automatically. $1,500 a month for 6 months. $9,000 more. I got out of bed and went downstairs to my home office. Robert's office, really. I'd barely changed anything since he died. His coffee mug still sat on the desk holding pens. His reading glasses folded next to the computer. I opened my banking app and started going through transactions, writing each one down. Business opportunity, $8,000. Car emergency, $12,000. Jewelry store startup, $25,000. Mortgage help, $15,000. Country club membership, $3,600. Dental emergency, $2,800. Marriage counseling trip, $4,200. Monthly expense help, $9,000. Emergency fund, various, $6,400, total $86,000. $86,000 in 9 months. I stared at the number I'd written. My hand was shaking. $86,000. And in return, I got a text message telling me I was a family obligation. I thought about Robert, about a night 15 years ago that I'd tried so hard to forget. I'd found his phone on the bathroom counter, a text notification from someone named Michelle. Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? The confrontation, his tears, my decision to forgive, to never speak of it again, to keep our family together. My sister Janet had warned me, "You're teaching him that he can hurt you without consequences. You're teaching him what you'll accept." I'd been angry at her for saying it, but she'd been right, hadn't she? I'd taught Robert that my love was unconditional, even when I was disrespected. Had I taught Christopher the same thing, that my love could be exploited? That I would always say yes, that I would give and give and give until there was nothing left. Wednesday morning, 9:15 a.m., I called Christopher. My hand trembled as I pressed his name on my phone. It rang, and rang, and rang. 6 times before he answered, breathless. "Mom, hey, bad time, I'm heading into a meeting." "This will be quick, honey." I kept my voice steady. "About Sunday's dinner. I'm confused. What's really going on?" Silence, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "I told you, Amber needs space. Space from me. From obligations. She's been stressed. We both have. Christopher, you're my son. Seeing your mother isn't an obligation. Or it shouldn't be." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder. Defensive. "Look, Mom, you don't understand what it's like. The pressure we're under. Building a life, trying to grow the business, and you—" He stopped. The silence stretched between us, filling with everything he wasn't saying. "Me what?" I asked quietly. "Nothing. I need to go." "Christopher, we'll talk next week. I promise." The line went dead. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed him breakfast before school for 18 years, where Robert had helped him with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays. I stared at my phone for 20 minutes. Then I did something I'd never done before. I opened a notepad and started writing down every interaction we'd had in the past 6 months. When had he called just to say hello? Never. When had he visited without needing something I couldn't remember? When had he asked about me, how I was doing, how I was handling being alone, whether I was lonely in this big house without Robert? Never. Not once. Every call, every visit, every conversation had ended with a request, with his hand out, with me opening my wallet. And I'd done it gladly, because that's what mothers do. We give, we sacrifice, we put our children first. But when does sacrifice become enabling? When does generosity become exploitation? Thursday afternoon, 3:30 p.m., I was sitting on my porch when Sarah Mitchell walked up carrying a casserole dish. Sarah lived 3 houses down. We'd been neighbors for 12 years. We waved at each other. We chatted about our gardens. But we'd never been close. Never had coffee together. Never shared anything personal. "Olivia." She climbed the porch steps, concern in her eyes. "Are you okay? You've seemed, I don't know, off lately. And I saw Christopher here yesterday. He looked upset." I should have said I was fine. That's what you do, isn't it? You keep family business private. You don't air your problems to neighbors. But something about the October afternoon sun, about the kindness in Sarah's face, about the sheer exhaustion of carrying this alone, something broke open inside me. "He canceled Sunday dinner," I heard myself say. "Said his wife needs space from family obligations. And I just realized I've given them $86,000 in the past 9 months. Sarah set down the casserole dish carefully. She sat beside me on the porch swing. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I told her about the money, the requests that never stopped, the distance that had grown between Christopher and me, the text message, my suspicions and my shame for having them, my fear that I was being a terrible mother for even questioning my own son. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "My mother went through something similar," she finally said. Her voice was soft but steady. "My brother convinced her to refinance her house to invest in his startup. She lost everything. I found her 2 years later living in a motel room. She was too ashamed to call me. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I was a social worker for 30 years, Olivia. I saw this 100 times. She turned to face me. It's called financial exploitation, and 70% of the time it's family members who do it. But Christopher wouldn't, maybe not intentionally, but Amber. The name sat between us like a stone. Sarah continued gentle but firm. You need to document everything, today, right now, before this goes any further. Because people who are exploiting someone financially, they don't stop. They escalate. What do you mean? I mean that when you start saying no, they'll try other tactics. Guilt, manipulation. And if that doesn't work, she paused, they'll try to take control another way. Guardianship, conservatorship. I've seen it, Olivia. I've seen families have their own parents declared incompetent so they can access their assets. The words hit me like cold water. Christopher would never. 6 months ago, would you have believed he'd take $86,000 and then tell you you're a family obligation? I couldn't answer that. I stood in my kitchen with my phone in my hand, my finger hovering over my bank's number. If I did this, everything would change. There would be no going back. But if I didn't do this, where would it end? 90,000, 100,000. Would I refinance my house next? Give them my retirement accounts? Would I end up like Sarah's mother in a motel room too ashamed to ask for help? I thought about Robert, about what he would say. Robert had been practical, loving but practical. He'd taught Christopher about consequences, about standing on your own 2 feet, about earning what you had. What would he think of me now, enabling our son's dependence, teaching him that money flows without effort, without reciprocity, without even basic respect? I pressed the call button. First National Bank, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? My voice came out steadier than I expected. I need to cancel some automatic transfers. Certainly. Can I have your account number? I gave it to her. What transfers would you like to cancel, Mrs. Morrison? All of them. My heart was pounding. I want to cancel all automatic transfers. There was a pause. Are you sure you've had these set up for months? I'm sure. We went through them one by one, the monthly $1,500 transfer to Christopher's account. Cancelled. The auto payment on the credit card in Christopher's name. Cancelled. The country club membership. Cancelled. Is there anything else? Jennifer asked. Yes. I need to remove someone as an authorized user on my credit card. Named Christopher Morrison, my son. Another pause. Removed. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, thank you. I hung up. Then I sat down on the kitchen floor and cried. Not gentle tears, not sad movie tears, but deep wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I'd been keeping locked away for years, because I knew what I'd just done. I'd declared war on my own son. 3 hours later, my phone started ringing. First call Amber. I let it go to voicemail. Olivia, there's a problem with our account. The transfer didn't go through. Can you call the bank? Thanks. Her voice was casual, unconcerned, like this was just a small banking error that I would fix immediately. Second call Christopher. Mom, something's wrong with the payments. The card was declined. Can you call me? Third call Christopher again. Mom, seriously, we need to talk. Call me back. Fourth call Amber. Olivia, I don't know what's going on, but we have bills due. Can you please call us back? Fifth call Christopher. His voice was different now, stressed, almost panicked. Mom, please pick up. I don't understand what's happening. Did something happen to your account? Call me, please. I turned off my phone. That night I sat alone in my dining room. The table was empty. No pie, no place settings, no family. Sunday would come and go without dinner. The first time in 35 years. I should have felt victorious, strong, empowered. Instead, I felt hollowed out. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about setting boundaries with people you love. It doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like loss. I was choosing myself, protecting myself, doing what I needed to do. But I was also losing my son, maybe forever. And as I sat there in the dark, listening to the old house settle around me, I wondered, was I strong enough for what came next? Because Sarah was right about one thing. When you stop giving people what they want, they don't just walk away. The doorbell rang at 11:30. I'd been up since dawn, sitting in Robert's old chair with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. I hadn't turned on the TV, hadn't opened a book. Just sat there, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of what I'd done. My phone turned back on that morning showed 17 missed calls. 12 from Christopher, 5 from Amber. When the doorbell rang, I already knew who it was. I looked through the peephole. Christopher stood on my porch alone. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes like bruises. His shirt was wrinkled untucked. His hair, usually so carefully styled, stood up in places like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked like his father had the night I'd confronted him about Michelle. I opened the door. "Mom," his voice cracked on the word. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked past me into the living room, and I caught the smell of stale coffee and stress sweat. When was the last time he'd showered? We stood there for a moment, neither of us sitting. Then he perched on the edge of Robert's old leather chair, the one I'd just been sitting in, the one where his father used to read the newspaper every morning. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. "The money stopped," he said. Not a question, a statement. Yes. Why? And there it was, a flash of the boy he used to be. Confused, hurt. The child who couldn't understand why Mom was saying no. "Mom, we're counting on that. The mortgage is due Tuesday, the car payment. I have a deal closing next week, and I need Christopher." I cut him off, my voice steadier than I felt. "When was the last time you called me just to talk?" He blinked. "What, Not to ask for money, not to cancel plans, just to see how I was doing, to ask about my day, to check if I'm lonely in this house. When was the last time?" We've been busy. I've given you $86,000 in 9 months. The color drained from his face, actually drained like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't realize it was that much. The jewelry store that was going to set you up for life. Where is it, Christopher?" Silence. "Where did the money go?" "We needed it, Mom." His voice rose defensive now. "The house, the car, maintaining our lifestyle. Do you know what it costs to live now? My business has been slow, and Amber's trying to build her brand, and You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I simplified the situation. I didn't want you to worry. You told me you needed money for a jewelry store. There is no jewelry store. That's not simplification, Christopher. That's a lie." He stood up, started pacing. Okay, yes, the business didn't work out. Amber tried, but the market wasn't right, and we had to pivot the funds to more immediate needs. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. Don't insult me with more lies. Mom, please. He moved toward me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. If you just give us one more chance. One more infusion to get us stable, and then we won't need to ask anymore. I swear. Get out. He froze. What? I need you to leave, Christopher. I need time to think. About what? About whether you're going to help your own son. His voice was getting louder. About whether you're going to let us lose our house while you sit in this giant place all alone. About whether my son sees me as a person or as an ATM machine. The words hung in the air between us. Christopher's face crumpled. That's not fair. Then tell me, when was the last time you visited without needing something? When was the last time you asked how I'm doing? He couldn't answer. Leave, Christopher, please. He stood there for a long moment, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Then he grabbed his keys from his pocket and walked to the door. He paused there, his back to me. Dad would have helped us, he said quietly. Dad would have understood. Your father would be ashamed of you, I said, and you know it. He left without another word. I stood in my empty living room listening to his car pull away and felt something break inside my chest. Then I picked up my phone and called Sarah. You were right, I said when she answered. I need help. David Harrison's office was downtown on the 3rd floor of a building that overlooked the park where I used to take Christopher to feed the ducks. Even now, looking out David's window, I could see the pond where my 5-year-old son had laughed and thrown breadcrumbs. How had that laughing child become the desperate man on my porch, Mrs. Morrison? David stood to shake my hand. He was late 50s, gray at the temples, with the kind of tired eyes that spoke of too many family implosions. Sarah Mitchell speaks highly of you. Please sit. His office was all dark wood and leather diplomas on the wall. Expensive, but not showy. I sat in the chair across from his desk and set down the folder I'd spent the weekend preparing. I'll be honest with you, David said, settling into his chair. Before we start, I need to ask, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want the truth? The truth. Good. He opened the folder I'd given him, started reading through my documentation. Bank statements, text messages, a timeline I'd created color-coded by type of request. He read for 10 minutes in complete silence. Finally, he looked up. "This is going to be difficult to prosecute," he said bluntly. My heart sank. Almost all of this was given as gifts. You transferred money willingly with no written loan agreements, no contracts. Your son made verbal requests, you fulfilled them. That's not legally fraud, Mrs. Morrison. So there's nothing I can do, I just have to accept that my son stole from me. I didn't say that. David leaned back in his chair. What you can do is protect yourself going forward. We update your will, create an irrevocable trust for your major assets, remove your son as executor and power of attorney, and set up safeguards so this can't continue. That sounds like I'm treating him as an enemy. No. It sounds like you're treating him like someone who's shown you who he is. David's voice was kind but firm. Are you prepared to believe him? I thought about Christopher on my porch, the way he'd immediately asked for more money, the way he'd deflected, justified, manipulated. When my husband had an affair 15 years ago, I heard myself say, I chose to forgive him, to keep our family together. My sister said I was being weak, but I thought I was being strong, choosing love over pride. And, David prompted gently, and maybe I taught everyone that I'm someone who can be hurt without consequences. My voice broke. Maybe I taught my son that my love is something he can exploit. Forgiveness and boundaries aren't mutually exclusive, Olivia. It was the first time he'd used my first name. You can love your son and still protect yourself. In fact, protecting yourself might be the most loving thing you can do for both of you. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're here, he said simply. That's stronger than you think. We spent the next 3 hours going through my estate. David drafted a new will removing Christopher as executor and instead appointing his firm. We created a revocable trust for my major assets. We updated my power of attorney to require 2 independent witnesses for any major financial decisions. With every signature, I felt like I was closing a door, locking out my own son. But I also felt something else. Safe. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. One more thing, David said as I was preparing to leave. I need to warn you, when Christopher and his wife realize you've taken these steps, they may escalate. Escalate how? People who've been cut off from money they considered theirs can become unpredictable. They may try guilt, threats. They may spread rumors about your mental state. They may even try to pursue legal avenues, guardianship, conservatorship. My blood went cold. They can do that. They can try. It rarely succeeds when the person is clearly competent, but it can be emotionally devastating. So please, Olivia, document everything. If they threaten you, if they harass you, I need to know immediately. I nodded, but inside I was reeling. Guardianship. They could try to have me declared incompetent, take away my autonomy, my freedom, my own son. I was in my garden when the doorbell rang. I'd been trying to keep busy pulling weeds, deadheading roses, anything to keep my hands occupied and my mind from spiraling. Through the front window, I saw Amber's car in my driveway. She was alone. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity and maybe something darker, a need to see what she'd try, made me open the door. Olivia? Amber smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was dressed carefully. Not too expensive, no designer labels visible, but not too casual either. The performance had started before I'd even opened the door. Can we talk woman to woman? Every instinct told me to say no, to close the door, to call David. But I needed to hear this. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. Come in, I said. She settled on my sofa like she owned it, like she'd been here 1,000 times. In reality, in 3 years of marriage to my son, Amber had been to my house maybe a dozen times. Always brief visits. Always with Christopher as a buffer. She played with her wedding ring, a gesture I recognized as calculated. Vulnerable. Nervous. I know Christopher came by Saturday, she began. I know he was upset. I said nothing, just waited. I need you to understand where I'm coming from, Olivia. She looked up at me, and there was something in her eyes, not quite tears, but the threat of them. I need you to know my story. I'm listening. I grew up in a trailer park outside Dayton, Ohio. Her voice was soft now, confessional. My mother was sick. addicted to meth. I was in and out of foster care from the time I was 8 until I aged out at 18. Do you know what that's like? Never having a home, never feeling safe. Despite myself, I felt a tug of sympathy. I swore when I got out that I would never be poor again, that I would build something, be someone, have a real life. I'm sorry you went through that, Amber. I truly am. When I met Christopher, he seemed so stable, successful, from a good family. Her voice hardened just slightly. Do you know what it's like to escape poverty only to watch your husband's business fail, to see everything you've built starting to crumble? So you decided to take it from me. I decided to secure our future. She stood up suddenly, and the vulnerable act fell away. That's all I've been doing, Olivia, and honestly, I don't understand why you're making this so difficult. Here it was, the real Amber. You're sitting in this massive house alone. She walked around my living room touching Robert's things, his books, his reading glasses. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a dining room you don't use, and your son, your only child, is struggling to make mortgage payments. Christopher is a grown man who needs his mother's support. God, Olivia, we're trying to start a family. Do you want grandchildren or not? Because we can't afford kids while barely keeping our heads above water. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that if I hadn't been prepared for it, I might have fallen for it. This house, Amber continued, her voice taking on a reasonable, practical tone. It's too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing? There are lovely senior communities, activities, healthcare services, people your own age. You'd be happier. And if I sold it, we could help you transition. Make sure you're taken care of. And yes, Christopher would inherit eventually anyway, so why not make everyone's life easier now? There it was, laid out so simply, so logically. Give up my home, move to a senior community, hand over my assets now instead of later. For my own good, of course. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Olivia, my house, my money, my decision, please leave. Amber's mask slipped completely. Her eyes went cold. You're making a mistake. Christopher is your only family. When you're old and sick and need help, who do you think is going to be there for you? Not someone who sees me as a resource to be liquidated. She grabbed her purse and walked to the door, but she paused there, turned back. We've been patient with you, Olivia. We've been respectful. But there are other ways to handle this situation. Legal ways. You might want to think about that. Then she was gone. I stood in my living room shaking. Legal ways. Guardianship. Just like David had warned. I pulled out my phone and called him. David, I think I need more help than we thought. Rachel Foster's office was nothing like David's. No dark wood, no leather chairs. Just a minimalist space with a desk, a ergonomic chair, and 3 large computer monitors. Rachel herself was all business, 45 sharp-featured, wearing a gray suit that meant she had no time for nonsense. David sent me your financials, she said without preamble. I've been tracing where your money went for the past 4 days. My mouth went dry. And she turned one of her monitors toward me. Mrs. Morrison, your son and daughter-in-law haven't just been careless with your money. They've been systematically defrauding you. The word hit me like a slap. Fraud. Let me show you. She pulled up a spreadsheet. The mortgage help you provided. You sent $1,500 a month for 6 months. That's $9,000. Yes, to help with their mortgage. Their mortgage payment is $1,100 a month. I pulled the property records. You were sending them $400 extra every single month. That's $2,400 unaccounted for. I stared at the numbers on the screen. The car situation. You sent $12,000 for repairs and a temporary lease. The transmission was broken. Amber's Audi Q5 is leased through Christopher's business. It's part of his operating costs. The lease payment is automatically deducted from his business account. Your $12,000 didn't go to car repairs, Olivia. Then where? That's where it gets interesting. Rachel clicked to another screen. I traced it to a property purchase, a vacation rental in Sedona, Arizona. My mind couldn't process this. Arizona, down payment on a condo, $20,000 total, $12,000 from you for the car, another $8,000 from the business opportunity he asked for in March. The room tilted. The jewelry store, Rachel continued relentless. $25,000 for startup costs. There is no jewelry business registered in Pennsylvania. Or any surrounding state. I checked. Then where did it go? Rachel's expression was grim. That's what I'm still tracing. But Olivia, there's something else. Something that changes everything. She pulled up a bank statement I didn't recognize. This is Christopher's personal account, and these deposits see them $2,000 here, $5,000 there, $3,000. They've been coming in monthly for over a year. From where? Rachel looked at me carefully. From Thomas Morrison. The name hit me like a physical blow. Thomas Robert's brother. Yes, and Thomas Morrison has been wiring money to Christopher's account regularly. But here's the thing, these aren't gifts. She showed me another document. These are loans, with interest, and they're secured against something very specific. My hands were shaking. What's up? Christopher's future inheritance from you. The words didn't make sense. I read them again and again. I don't understand, I whispered. Rachel leaned forward. Thomas has been lending money to Christopher, about $68,000 total over the past 18 months. But each loan comes with a promissory note. Christopher has been signing documents that give Thomas first claim on your estate when you die. He's betting on my death. More than that. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. He's positioned himself as Christopher's primary creditor. When you pass, your estate goes to Christopher. But Thomas has legal claim to those assets first to satisfy the loans. He's leveraged your generosity to Christopher to give himself control over your estate without you even knowing. I couldn't breathe. Robert's brother, the man who'd given the eulogy at my husband's funeral, who'd hugged me at the reception and told me I was family forever, who'd called me on my birthday every year since Robert died. He'd been betting on when I would die. There's more, Rachel said quietly. More? How can there be more? She pulled up search history. I have a contact at a data recovery firm. With your permission and legal backing from David, we pulled data from Amber's laptop. She showed me the searches, memory care facilities near me, how to document cognitive decline, guardianship procedures, Pennsylvania, can guardians sell parents' house? The screen blurred. I was crying, but I couldn't feel the tears. She's been planning to have me declared incompetent, I whispered. It's a common tactic in financial exploitation cases, Rachel said. Establish a pattern of concerning behavior. Get witnesses to corroborate. Petition for emergency guardianship. Once they control you legally, they control your assets. I stood up suddenly. I need air. Olivia, sit down, please. But I couldn't. The room was spinning. My son, my brother-in-law. They weren't just taking my money. They were planning to take my freedom. The Tesla in my driveway belonged to Thomas Morrison. Robert's brother stepped out wearing expensive casual clothes, his Arizona tan making him look younger than 62. He had Robert's eyes, Robert's smile. It made this so much harder. I met him at the door. Liv, he used Robert's nickname for me. I heard there's been family tension. Thought I'd fly in and help mediate. I should have closed the door, but I needed to hear this. Come in. Thomas settled into Robert's chair. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. Christopher's worried about you, he began. Says you've been acting unlike yourself, making accusations, cutting off support suddenly. He shook his head sadly. Have you considered that maybe the stress of widowhood, the isolation, maybe it's affecting your judgment? There it was, the same script Amber had used. I know my brother's death hit you hard. Grief can do strange things. There's no shame in needing help. He leaned forward earnest. Christopher and I have been talking. Maybe it's time to consider some additional support. Someone to help manage your finances, your daily care. Someone like Christopher. He is your son. Who better? I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, hit record. Thomas, I'm recording this. I want you to explain why you've been loaning money to Christopher secured against my estate. The concerned expression vanished. His eyes went cold. You've been investigating us. Why did you do it? Robert left you money. Why wasn't that enough? For a long moment, silence. Then something broke in his face. Because Dad left everything to Robert. The words exploded out. The business, the investments, this house, everything. I got $50,000 while Robert got millions. Thomas is the younger son. Robert is the responsible one. His voice dripped with decades of bitterness. So this is about your father. Robert's been dead for 5 years. This is about what I'm owed. He stood pacing. Robert wasted everything Dad gave him, became a school principal, A school principal. He could have built an empire, but he wanted to make a difference. The mockery was ugly. Such a waste. Robert was happy. Robert was a fool, and you enabled it. Thomas's face twisted. The loans I've given Christopher, they're not generosity, Liv. They're leverage. First claim on your estate. Every dollar you leave, Christopher comes to me first, with interest. And if I leave everything to charity, you won't. You're too soft, too sentimental. He smiled coldly. It's what made you such an easy mark. Get out of my house. This was Robert's house. Really, it's Christopher's house. He walked to the door, paused. We tried to do this nicely, but if you want war, you have no idea who you're fighting. Christopher and I have attorneys, documentation of your erratic behavior. We can make this very difficult. I have recordings, evidence, the truth. He actually laughed. The truth. I've been planning this for 3 years. Everything is legal documented. But you're a grieving widow making poor decisions, alienating her only child, showing signs of paranoia. He opened the door. Ask yourself, who will people believe? Then he was gone. They came in 3 cars, Christopher and Amber, Thomas, and Dr. Philip Wright, my doctor for 15 years. An intervention. Sarah saw from her window and came running. I opened the door before they could ring. Mrs. Morrison? Dr. Wright looked uncomfortable. Your family has concerns about your welfare. I'm here for a wellness check. Did they tell you they've taken nearly $100,000 from me? Christopher flinched. Show Dr. Wright your documentation, Amber said smoothly. Show him how you've been obsessively tracking every penny, creating conspiracy theories. Brilliant. My self-defense looked like paranoia. I'm Sarah Mitchell, my neighbor said, stepping forward. Retired social worker, mandated reporter. This is elder financial abuse, and I've been documenting everything. Dr. Wright, I said calmly, I'll do a cognitive assessment, but they leave first. He looked at the family. That's reasonable. They left. Christopher lingered, but I just looked at him until he walked away. The assessment took an hour. Memory tests, problem solving, health review. Mrs. Morrison, Dr. Wright said finally, there's nothing wrong with your cognitive function. You scored exceptionally well. I don't know what your family's concerns are, but it's not your mental capacity. He closed his bag. I'll document this. It might be useful. After he left, I sat down heavily. They tried to have me declared incompetent, I whispered. But you're not, Sarah said firmly. And now you have proof. Christopher and Amber returned. Just the 2 of them this time. I had my phone recording in my pocket. Sarah was in the next room listening. Mom, please. Christopher looked broken. I can't lose you. You're all I have left of Dad. Come in. They sat. Christopher on the sofa, hands trembling. Amber beside him, face carefully composed. We need to talk rationally, Christopher began. I agree. You've taken nearly $100,000 based on lies. We weren't completely transparent, Amber interrupted. But Olivia, let's be realistic. You're 69. How much longer will you live here? 10 year, 15. We need capital now, not when we're 50. So I should hurry up and die. Don't twist my words. Amber's composure cracked. We could all benefit from better resource distribution. You're hoarding assets while your son struggles. I didn't raise a son who sees his mother as a resource. Christopher flinched. Amber stood pacing. You want truth, fine. Yes, we've been planning ahead, positioning ourselves for your eventual transition. Because that's what smart people do. We've been building legal frameworks documenting your behavior. Amber, Christopher warned, but she couldn't stop. The desperation was pouring out. Someone needs to be realistic. You're sitting on over $2 million while we drown. And it's all going to Christopher anyway. We're just asking for it sooner. And if I refuse, then we pursue other options. Amber's voice went cold. Guardianship. Conservatorship. We've consulted attorneys. We have Dr. Wright's old notes about your grief and depression, witnesses to your erratic behavior, your paranoid accusations. Christopher stood. Amber, stop. Why? She needs to understand her position. Elderly, widowed, alone, alienated from family. If we petition for emergency guardianship citing self-care concerns, a judge will listen. The threat hung naked in the air. I walked to the door, opened it. Leave, both of you. Mom, You stood there while your wife threatened to strip me of my autonomy. You said nothing. I didn't know she would get out. They left. Amber stormed out first. Christopher hesitated. Dad would be ashamed of me, wouldn't he? Yes, I said. He would. David's conference room. The team assembled. David Harrison, Rachel Foster, Linda Wright from Adult Protective Services. Linda interviewed me for 3 hours. Mrs. Morrison, I see no cognitive impairment. What I see is a woman protecting herself from systematic exploitation. I'll file a report contradicting any incompetence claims. Rachel presented her complete findings. Total given $97,000. Diverted to Arizona property, $45,000. Thomas's predatory loans, $68,000. Amber's hidden income, $23,000. They're playing you from all sides, Rachel said. David laid out the strategy. Family mediation. We present everything Forensic Accounting Recordings APS report. We offer settlement no contact for 1 year mandatory therapy, no guardianship attempts. And if they refuse, civil suits for fraud and elder abuse. Criminal complaints to the DA. The room went quiet. They're betting you won't prosecute, David said. They're betting you love your son too much. I thought about Christopher at 8 years old, at his graduation, at his father's funeral. Then I thought about him standing silent while his wife threatened my freedom. Do it, I said. All of it. That night I wrote a letter I'd never send dear Christopher. Remember when you were 8 and a bully took your lunch money? Dad and I taught you don't negotiate with people who hurt you. You protect yourself. I wish you'd remembered. I will always love you. But I will not be your victim. Mom, I folded it into Robert's desk drawer. Tomorrow the real battle began. 3 weeks later, I sat in David's conference room waiting for the mediation to start, waiting to face my son, waiting to find out if love was enough to rebuild what had been so completely destroyed, or if some betrayals are simply too deep to heal.